Step into Riley's Geek World, where it keeps you night. From comics to gaming, every nerd inside. She dives into the fandoms, exploring all the lore. Riley's the hostess, she'll take you on a tour. Welcome to Riley's Geek World, where the geeks are never alone. Discovering new dimensions in every episode. From the heroes to wizards and everything that's cool. Riley's Geek World, where geeks.
Hello and welcome to Riley's Geek World, the podcast where I, Riley Murphy, talk about all things geeky and nerdy. Whether you're into movies, TV shows, games, comics, or anything else, this is the place for you. In today's episode, I'm going to discuss one of my favorite movie franchises of all time, Back to the Future. I'm sure you've heard of it, or at least seen the iconic DeLorean time machine. But did you know that there's more to Back to the Future than just the 3 films? There are also cartoons, video games, and comic books that expand and explore the Back to the Future universe. So, buckle up, because we're going to take a trip through time and see what makes this franchise so awesome and timeless. Pun intended. Let's start with a quick recap of the Back to the Future story, in case you need a refresher or you haven't seen the films yet. And if you haven't, what are you waiting for? Go watch them right now. Trust me, you won't regret it. Anyway, the Back to the Future story revolves around Marty McFly, a typical teenager from 1985, who accidentally travels back to 1955 in a time machine built by his friend, the eccentric scientist Doc Brown. There, he meets his young parents and inadvertently interferes with their romance, putting his own existence at risk. He has to make sure they fall in love and get back to the future, with the help of the younger Doc Brown. Along the way, he also has to deal with the local bully, Biff Tannen, who becomes his nemesis throughout the series. In the second film, Marty and Doc travel to the future, specifically to October 21st, 2015, to prevent Marty's son from getting into trouble. However, things go wrong when Biff steals the time machine and alters the past, creating a dystopian 1985 where he is rich and powerful, and Marty's family is miserable. Marty and Doc have to go back to 1955 again, to the same time as the first film, and undo Biff's changes without messing up their previous actions. In the third film, Marty travels to the past again, this time to 1885, to rescue Doc, who got stranded there and fell in love with a schoolteacher named Clara Clayton. Marty has to deal with the ancestor of Biff Buford Mad Dog Tannen, who wants to kill Doc over a matter of $80. Marty and Doc also have to find a way to get the time machine working again, using the limited resources of the Old West, and get back to the future without leaving Clara behind. That's the basic plot of the Back to the Future trilogy, but there's so much more to it than that. The films are full of humor, action, romance, drama, and sci-fi elements. They have amazing characters, clever dialogue, stunning visuals, and catchy music. They also have a lot of fun with the concept of time travel, showing the consequences and paradoxes of changing the past and the future, as well as the cultural and historical differences between different eras. The films are also very self-referential, with many callbacks, foreshadowing, and recurring jokes and motifs. The Back to the Future trilogy is widely regarded as one of the best and most influential film franchises ever made. It has received critical acclaim and commercial success, as well as numerous awards and nominations. The first film won an Academy Award for Best Sound Editing and was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. The trilogy has also spawned a loyal and passionate fan base who celebrate the films and their legacy in various ways, such as cosplay, conventions, fan art, fan fiction, and fan films. One of the most notable fan events is the Back to the Future Day, which is October 23rd, the date that Marty and Doc travel to in the second film. On that day, fans around the world commemorate the films and their predictions for the future, some of which came true, such as flat-screen TVs, video calls, biometric scanners, hoverboards, and self-lacing shoes, and some of which didn't, such as flying cars, fusion reactors, and Jaws 19. But the films are not the only way to enjoy the Back to the Future story. There are also other media that adapt, expand, and explore the Back to the Future universe, such as cartoons, video games, and comic books. Let's take a look at some of them and see how they compare and contrast with the films. The first spin-off from the films was the animated series, which ran for 2 seasons from 1991 to 1992 on CBS. The series follows the adventures of Marty, Doc, and Doc's family, which includes his wife Clara, his sons Jules and Vern, and his dog Einstein, as they travel through time using a modified DeLorean, a steam train, or a time-skipping remote control. The series also features live-action segments, where Christopher Lloyd, who played Doc in the films, introduces each episode and answers questions from young viewers, and Thomas F. Wilson, who played Biff in the films, voices various members of the Tannen family throughout history. The series is mostly aimed at younger audiences and has a more comedic and educational tone than the films. It also introduces new characters and settings, such as Marty's girlfriend Jennifer Parker, Doc's assistant Clara Clayton, and Hill Valley in different time periods, such as the Ice Age, the Renaissance, the Civil War, and the future. The series also references and revisits some of the events and locations from the films, such as the Enchantment Under the Sea Dance, the Hill Valley Festival, and the Wild West. The animated series is a fun and entertaining way to continue the Back to the Future story, but it is not considered canon by the creators of the films. Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, who wrote and produced the films, had no involvement in the series and have stated that they do not consider it part of the official continuity. They have also expressed their dissatisfaction with some of the changes and additions that the series made, such as Doc's sons being named after Jules Verne and having brown hair, instead of being named after Marty and having blonde hair, as shown in the third film. However, the series does have some elements that are consistent with the films, such as the voice actors, the music, and the DeLorean. The series also has some elements that foreshadow or influence later media, such as the time-skipping remote control, which is similar to the one used in the video game Back to the Future, the game, and the character of Clara Clayton, who is featured in the comic book Back to the Future, Tales from the Time Train. Now let's talk about the video games based on the Back to the Future franchise, which are another way to experience and enjoy the story and the characters. There have been several video games released over the years, some of them directly adapting the films, and some of them creating original stories that use the films as a basis. Some of the games are good, some of them are bad, and some of them are just weird. Let's take a look at some of the most notable and interesting ones. One of the earliest and most infamous video games is Back to the Future for the Nintendo Entertainment System, which was released in 1989 by LJN. This game is widely considered to be one of the worst video games ever made, and for good reasons. The game has nothing to do with the film except for the title and the DeLorean. The game consists of 4 levels, each with a different mode of play, but none of them make any sense or have any fun. The first level is a side-scrolling level, where Marty has to avoid obstacles and enemies, such as bees, hula hoop girls, and bullies, while collecting clocks to keep his picture from fading. The second level is a top-down level, where Marty has to collect notes and avoid obstacles, while playing the guitar at the Enchantment Under the Sea Dance. The third level is another side-scrolling level, where Marty has to dodge glass bottles and birds, while riding a skateboard to catch up with the DeLorean. The fourth level is a behind-the-car level, where Marty has to drive the DeLorean to 88 miles per hour, while avoiding lightning bolts and sandbags. The game is frustrating, boring, and unfair, and it has nothing to do with the film's plot, characters, or humor. The game also has terrible graphics, sound, and music, especially the repetitive and annoying rendition of the song "The Power of Love." The game is a complete waste of time and money, and a disgrace to the Back to the Future franchise. A much better and more faithful video game is Back to the Future, the game, which was released in 2010 and 2011 by Telltale Games. This game is an episodic graphic adventure game, which means that it is divided into 5 episodes, each with its own story and puzzles. The game is set 6 months after the events of the third film and follows Marty as he travels to different time periods to rescue Doc, who got stranded in the past. The game is a lot of fun and very engaging, as it lets you explore the Back to the Future universe, interact with the characters, and make choices that affect the story. The game also has a great story, which is written by Bob Gale, the co-creator and co-writer of the films, and features many references and callbacks to the films, as well as some new twists and surprises. The game also has great graphics, sound, and music, which capture the look and feel of the films. The game also has great voice acting, with Christopher Lloyd reprising his role as Doc, and Michael J. Fox making 2 cameo appearances as future versions of Marty and his ancestor. The game also has a new voice actor for Marty, AJ Locascio, who does a fantastic job of imitating Michael J. Fox's voice and mannerisms. The game is a must-play for any Back to the Future fan, as it is a worthy sequel and a tribute to the films. There are also some other video games that feature Back to the Future content, but not as the main focus. For example, there is LEGO Dimensions, which is a crossover game that combines LEGO versions of various franchises, such as The Lord of the Rings, The Simpsons, Doctor Who, and of course Back to the Future. The game allows you to play as Marty and Doc along with other characters and use the DeLorean and the hoverboard, as well as other vehicles and gadgets, to travel through different worlds and solve puzzles. The game also has a Back to the Future level pack, which includes a new level based on Hill Valley in 1955, and a Back to the Future world, which includes Hill Valley in different time periods, such as 1885, 1985, and 2015. The game is a lot of fun and very creative, as it lets you mix and match different characters and items from different franchises, and see how they interact and react to each other. The game also has a lot of humor and charm, as it parodies and pays homage to the different franchises and has some original dialogue and jokes. The game also has great graphics, sound, and music, which are faithful to the LEGO style and the original franchises. The game also has great voice acting, with Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd reprising their roles as Marty and Doc, and some archive footage and sound-alikes for other characters. The game is a great way to experience and enjoy the Back to the Future franchise, as well as other franchises, in a new and different way. Now let's talk about the comic books based on the Back to the Future franchise, which are another way to enjoy and explore the story and the characters. There have been 2 comic book series published by different companies, each with its own style and approach. The first comic book series was published by Harvey Comics in the early 1990s and was based on the animated series. The second comic book series was published by IDW Publishing in the 2010s and was based on the films as well as other media. Let's take a look at each of them and see how they compare and contrast with the films. The Harvey Comics series ran for 7 issues from 1991 to 1993 and was a tie-in to the animated series. The comics followed the same format and tone as the show, featuring the adventures of Marty, Doc, and Doc's family, as they traveled through time using various devices. The comics also featured live-action segments, where Christopher Lloyd and Thomas F. Wilson reprised their roles as Doc and Biff, respectively. The comics were mostly aimed at younger audiences, and had a more comedic and educational tone than the films. The comics also introduced new characters and settings, such as Marty's girlfriend Jennifer Parker, Doc's assistant Clara Clayton, and Hill Valley in different time periods, such as the Ice Age, the Renaissance, the Civil War, and the future. The comics also referenced and revisited some of the events and locations from the films, such as the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, the Hill Valley Festival, and the Wild West. The Harvey Comics series was a fun and entertaining way to continue the Back to the Future story, but it was not considered canon by the creators of the films. Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, who wrote and produced the films, had no involvement in the comics, and did not consider them part of the official continuity. They also expressed their dissatisfaction with some of the changes and additions that the comics made, such as Doc's sons being named after Jules Verne and having brown hair, instead of being named after Marty and having blonde hair, as shown in the third film. However, the comics did have some elements that were consistent with the films, such as the voice actors, the music, and the DeLorean. The comics also had some elements that foreshadowed or influenced later media, such as the time-skipping remote control, which was similar to the one used in the video game Back to the Future, the game, and the character of Clara Clayton, who was featured in the comic book Back to the Future, Tales from the Time Train. The IDW Publishing series started in 2015 and is still ongoing, with over 30 issues published so far. The comics are based on the films, as well as other media, such as the animated series, the video game, and the ride. The comics are written by Bob Gale, along with other writers such as John Barber and Eric Burnham. The comics feature the stories of Marty, Doc, and other characters as they travel through time and deal with the consequences and paradoxes of their actions. The comics have a more serious and mature tone than the animated series, but still retain the humor and charm of the films. The comics also expand and explore the Back to the Future universe, by filling in the gaps, revealing the secrets, and answering the questions that fans have always wondered about. For example, the comics show how Doc and Marty met, how Doc became a scientist, how Biff became rich and powerful, how Marty and Jennifer got married, and what happened to Doc and his family after the third film. The IDW Publishing series is a great and faithful way to continue and enhance the Back to the Future story, and it is considered canon by the creators of the films. Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, who wrote and produced the films, are involved in the comics and consider them part of the official continuity. They also approve and supervise the changes and additions that the comics make, such as introducing new characters, such as Marty's Uncle Joey, Doc's mentor Emmett Brown, and Doc's rival Marcus Irving, and showing new time periods, such as the 1930s, the 1970s, and the 1990s. The comics also have many elements that are consistent with the films, such as the actors, the music, and the time machine. The comics also have many elements that pay homage to and reference the films, as well as other media, such as the animated series, the video game, and the ride. The comics also have some original and creative elements, such as the time train, the flux capacitor watch, and the Tannen crime family. Both comic book series are interesting and entertaining ways to enjoy and explore the Back to the Future franchise, but they have different styles and approaches. The Harvey Comics series is more based on the animated series and has a more comedic and educational tone. The IDW Publishing series is more based on the films and has a more serious and mature tone. The Harvey Comics series is not considered canon by the creators of the films, while the IDW Publishing series is. The Harvey Comics series introduces new characters and settings, while the IDW Publishing series expands and explores existing ones. The Harvey Comics series references and revisits some of the events and locations from the films, while the IDW Publishing series fills in the gaps, reveals the secrets, and answers the questions that fans have always wondered about. Both comic book series have some elements that are consistent with the films, such as the voice actors, the music, and the DeLorean, and some elements that foreshadow or influence later media, such as the time-skipping remote control, the time train, and the flux capacitor watch. Now let's talk about the music of the Back to the Future franchise, which is another essential part of its charm and appeal. The films have a fantastic score composed by Alan Silvestri, who also worked with Robert Zemeckis on other films, such as Forrest Gump, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and The Polar Express. The score is full of memorable themes and motifs, such as the main theme, which is played during the opening credits and the climactic scenes, the love theme, which is played during the romantic moments between Marty and Jennifer or Doc and Clara, and the suspense theme, which is played during the tense and dangerous situations, such as the clock tower scene or the train scene. The score also adapts to the different time periods, using instruments and styles that match the era, such as rock and roll for the 1950s, synthesizers for the 2015, and banjos for the 1885. The score is one of the best examples of how music can enhance and complement the mood and atmosphere of a film. But the films also feature some great songs, both original and existing, that add to the fun and flavor of the story. Some of the songs are diegetic, meaning they are part of the scene, and the characters can hear them, such as the songs that Marty plays on his guitar, or the songs that are played on the radio or the jukebox. Some of the songs are non-diegetic, meaning they are only heard by the audience, such as the songs that play over the montage or the end credits. The songs are carefully chosen to fit the theme and tone of the film, as well as the time period and the genre. But the two most popular and iconic songs from the franchise are undoubtedly The Power of Love and Back in Time, both by Huey Lewis and the News, who were one of the biggest rock bands of the 1980s. They were approached by the filmmakers to write a song for the first film, and they agreed to do so, as long as they could write any song they wanted, and not one called Back to the Future. They ended up writing two songs, one for the beginning and one for the end of the film, and both songs became huge hits and classics. Let's take a closer look at these two songs and see what makes them so special and relevant to the Back to the Future story. The Power of Love is the first song that we hear in the film as Marty skateboards to school. It is also the song that plays when Marty and Jennifer kiss for the first time, and when they reunite at the end of the film. The song is a catchy and upbeat rock song, with a driving guitar riff, a catchy chorus, and a saxophone solo. The lyrics are about the power of love as a transformative force that can change your life, make you stronger, and make you do anything. The song also has a music video, which features the band playing in a nightclub with Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown showing up in his DeLorean and a couple stealing it for a joyride. Back in Time is the second song that we hear in the film as it plays over the end credits. It is also the song that plays when Marty wakes up in his improved 1985 and when he and Doc leave for the future in the second film. The song is a fun and upbeat rock song, with a catchy keyboard riff, a catchy chorus, and a harmonica solo. The lyrics are essentially a summary of the movie, with a fairly obvious title that scans better than Back to the Future. The song also has some references to the film, such as the line, "Tell me, Doctor, where are we going this time?" which alludes to Doc Brown and his time machine, and the line, "Better promise me I'll be back in time," which alludes to Marty's mission and his catchphrase. The song also has a music video, which features clips from the film, as well as the band playing in a garage, with Huey Lewis reading a comic book titled Back to the Future. Both songs are great examples of how music can enhance and complement the story and the mood of a film, as well as how music can become part of the pop culture and the legacy of a film. Both songs are also great examples of how Huey Lewis and the News are a talented and versatile band who can write and perform catchy and memorable songs with a distinctive style and sound. I love both songs, and I think they are perfect for the Back to the Future franchise. But what do you think? Do you agree or disagree with me? Which song is your favorite? What are some of your favorite moments or scenes from the films that feature these songs? Well, that's all for today's episode of Riley's Geek World. I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about the Back to the Future franchise and its various adaptations. I think it's one of the best and most fun sci-fi stories ever told, and I love how it explores the possibilities and paradoxes of time travel, as well as the themes of friendship, family, and destiny. I also love how it pays homage to and parodies different genres and eras of cinema, from westerns and horror to musicals and sci-fi. I think the films are classics that will never get old, and the other media are interesting and entertaining ways to expand and explore the Back to the Future universe. But what do you think? Do you agree or disagree with me? Which film or media is your favorite? What are some of your favorite moments or characters from the franchise? Do you have any questions or suggestions for future topics? Let me know by sending me an email at rileysgeekworld@gmail.com or by leaving a comment. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are available on all major platforms. It really helps me out, and I appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much for listening to Riley's Geek World. I'm Riley Murphy, and I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, the future is whatever you make it, so make it a good one. Bye.
Stepping through Riley's world of addiction night, a podcast dedicated to all things out of sight. From comic books to movies, video games, and more. Riley's got the scoop, she's got the score. Welcome to Riley's Geek World, dreams come true. Deep into the geek culture just for you. Every episode a brand new theme explored. In Riley's Geek World is never a dull chord.